The wind outside the cafe moved lazily, brushing against the windows like it had nowhere urgent to be. Inside, however, something inside Hannah Miller felt like it was collapsing in slow motion. She sat at a small wooden table near the corner, shoulders slightly hunched, fingers knotted together in her lap. Across from her sat Ethan Cole, a man she had known for barely 3 weeks, and yet somehow he had already become dangerous to her peace. Beside Hannah, her daughter Maya swung her legs gently under the chair, quietly rolling a plastic toy between her palms. She didn't speak. She rarely did around strangers, but she watched everything. Hannah had promised herself this would be the last time. One coffee, one conversation. Then she would pull away before she wanted more than she was allowed to have. From the moment she walked into the cafe, Ethan had noticed it. The tightness in her jaw, the careful way she avoided eye contact, the look of someone already preparing for disappointment. She carried herself like a woman who had learned the hard way not to lean too heavily on hope. In her mind, the rules were clear. Happiness didn't stay, and when it did knock, it always came with a cost. The words slipped out before she could stop them. Men don't like single mothers. She said it quietly, not accusing him, warning him. For a split second, the silence felt unbearable. Maya glanced up at her mother, sensing the shift. Hannah reached for her daughter's hand instinctively, squeezing it gently, as if bracing for something to break. Hannah hadn't always been this guarded. Once, she believed in ordinary dreams. Growing up in a quiet town in Indiana, she imagined a small house, shared dinners, someone who stayed. She believed love was something you built and kept. That belief didn't survive her early 20s. At 22, she told a man she loved that she was pregnant. He packed his things 2 days later. No explanation that made sense, no goodbye that softened the damage. What stayed behind was a quiet shame she never quite learned how to shake, the feeling that she had become too much overnight. Life became survival. Long shifts at a care facility, bills timed down to the dollar, nights spent staring at the ceiling, calculating groceries instead of dreaming. She learned how to smile while exhausted, how to apologize for needing help without ever asking for it. She learned not to expect anyone to choose her. Ethan had entered her life almost accidentally. He was a contractor from Wisconsin, temporarily in town for a restoration project. They met at the care facility when he came to repair a loose railing. What stayed with her wasn't his appearance, it was the way he spoke to the residents, slowly, respectfully, like their time mattered. When he spoke to her, it was the same way. She had avoided him at first, always busy, always polite, always distant. It took weeks before she agreed to coffee, and even then, she brought Maya. She refused to pretend she was anything other than what she was. Now, she wished she hadn't come at all. She stared down at the table, waiting for Ethan to do what everyone eventually did. Pull back gently, say something kind but final, create space. But he didn't. He studied her quietly, noticing the slight tremor in her hands, the tiredness she tried to hide, the way she had already decided how this conversation would end. Something shifted inside him. Not pity, but respect. He saw a woman who carried more than most people ever had to, and still showed up. Hannah felt the second stretch. Her heart pounded so loudly she was sure he could hear it. Then Ethan leaned forward slightly. "Can I tell you something?" he asked, calm, grounded. She nodded, barely. "I don't see a problem," he said. "I see someone who didn't run when things got hard." Her breath caught. He spoke carefully, not rehearsed, not dramatic. He told her that motherhood didn't reduce her value, it revealed her strength. That raising a child alone wasn't baggage, it was evidence. That anyone who walked away because of that wasn't offering love anyway. "I'm not here because you need saving," he said softly. "I'm here because I want to be." Hannah felt something inside her crack, not loudly, but deeply. She blinked hard, fighting tears she wasn't prepared to explain. No one had spoken to her like this before. No one had stayed steady after hearing the words that usually ended everything. Maya reached out then, small fingers wrapping around Ethan's hand without hesitation. He didn't flinch. He smiled at her instead. That simple moment, so small, so unforced, made Hannah's chest ache. Fear and hope tangled together in a way she hadn't felt in years. They talked longer than planned, about work, about childhood, about small fears they rarely admitted out loud. Hannah laughed once, surprised by the sound of it. Ethan didn't rush her, didn't promise anything. He just showed up. And then he kept showing up. Coffee during her breaks, park visits so she could rest. Quiet consistency. No pressure to replace anyone, just presence. Hannah was afraid of hope, of attachment, of loss. But every time she pulled back, Ethan met her with patience instead of offense. Months passed. Trust came slowly. One evening by the lake, watching Maya chase ducks near the water, Hannah realized something had changed. She wasn't alone anymore. Not because someone fixed her life, but because someone chose to step into it. Ethan didn't just love her, he loved her world. As the sun dipped low, he reached for her hand, gently, like asking permission. And for the first time in years, Hannah didn't pull away. Love hadn't arrived loudly. It arrived quietly, like a steady voice after years of silence, reminding her she wasn't too much, too broken, or too late.